Okay, I think we're all up and running. What I'm going to talk about tonight is something I've been thinking about the last few days, and that's what the potential aftermath of the war in Ukraine would look like for people in the UK and wider field. So first things first, what am I assuming the aftermath is going to be? Because this war is going to end sooner or later. The general trend over the past 18 odd months, or however long it's been, it has been a gradual erosion of the Ukrainian ability to maintain a coherent defense. Okay? I know we hear in the media that Ukraine is going from strength to strength, but we've been told all manner of things that haven't been true. This is not the topic of this discussion, but just think about it. I mean, we were told the sanctions war would destroy Russia in 4 to 8 weeks. There'd be bread rioting, and we were told that Putin was at death's door. We were told he was going to get removed in a popular uprising. Didn't happen, did it? But anyway, I'm going to work with the assumption that that many other people are working with is that Ukraine is going to lose. Because the only people that can stop this war are the Russians. And they don't want to stop. So that's the assumption I'm working with. Take it or leave it, I don't care. So what does that mean for us then? Well, the first big question, I think, is where did all the money go? And when I say money, I'm talking billions and billions of pounds, dollars, whatever currency you want to use, dollars, pounds, mostly dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars in cash transfer alone. Probably the same in assets as well. That's military equipment, ammunition, and also labor, training, the bureaucratic work that's gone in to assist the Ukrainians, the work of all the various intelligence agencies. A massive amount of wealth has been put into the cause. Okay, that's fine. But we know as sure as night follows day is that a significant amount of that money has almost certainly been misplaced, misspent, and stolen. And not just state money that's gone to it, private money as well. I mean, the amount of fraudulent charities out there that are profiting from this war is probably astronomical. Just donate something and we'll build this for the Ukraine. It's all going in some dude's pocket. And even you got these semi-legitimate charities, they're still businesses. Yeah, 60% of their profits go to the charitable cause, but so the first concern is what happened to the money? Audit the Ukraine donations and audit the Ukraine military aid. Because I would not be surprised if a substantial fraction is going to some dude's account somewhere. We've seen this before everywhere. Just look at foreign aid. I mean, it would be surprising if it wasn't going into a lot of people's slush funds. So there's that to deal with. The other thing is, are we going to get any of this money back? Probably not. And not just money, but assets. So a lot of these tanks that have been donated to Ukraine, which may or may not be destroyed, not just tanks but vehicles themselves, are we ever going to get them back? I mean, have they been permanently given to the Ukrainians? Or is it on a lease agreement whereby at the end of the war, whatever's left has got to be given back? I don't think the Ukrainians were given back. They say, yeah, come and get it. It's rusting in a field somewhere. So the huge amount of money, people are going to ask questions. I donated this money here and that money there, and a lot of it got sieved away. So I think the first major things that happen will be the money could have been more effective or spent in a more effective way. That's number one. The second outcome, I think, will be a reasonable question about the massive failure of NATO strategy and NATO intelligence agencies. The combined intelligence might of the Western world and a lot of other countries that aren't in the Western world that are sort of hanging on, all failed. So all of the thousands and thousands of analysts with access to satellite imagery and radio intercepts and email intercepts and human intelligence, they all failed. And the strategists failed as well. And we're seeing that, we seem to be seeing that at this moment, that whoever designed the grand Ukrainian spring counteroffensive, it hasn't worked. Compared to their autumn counteroffensive, which was one part semi-successful, another part fairly successful, this has been a complete flop. So the strategists of the West would have been shown up. The military geniuses of the British Army and the German Army and the American Army would have failed. And the intelligence officers would have failed as well, because the Russians have repeatedly surprised us. What's the word? I mean, they don't seem to have suffered any kind of shock from being attacked in various ways. I mean, the other week they withstood this mutiny very calmly. So people are going to ask questions. Hold on, you NATO warmongers, you're geniuses. You won the Gulf War, the second Gulf War, and all these type of things. And people are going to ask, maybe you're not as good as we pay you for. Maybe you're not as good as we think you are. And the intelligence agencies as well. I mean, we've heard all kinds of nonsense from these guys. The Russian army is on the verge of collapse. The Russian army, is conducting human wave charges armed with, trowels and toothpicks. Things of that nature. Putin died 6 months ago, and all this noise. These guys are in the spotlight as well. Now, who gets the blame? Because the strategists will say, well, we can't make accurate, high-quality decisions without high-quality intelligence. And the intelligence agencies will say, well, we found the intelligence and gave you the analysis, but your interpretation of said intelligence was flawed. So they'll be blaming each other. But the question remains, if you guys are the great leaders of the greatest armies in the world, why'd you lose? Will anything happen to it? There might be a reshuffle. I don't think they'll, they're all Teflon. They'll just retire. As far as I know, no one's been brought to book about the failure in Afghanistan and the failure in Iraq and all these other places. Business as usual. Politically, this goes into sort of the third point. Politically, I'm really not sure what the fallout is going to be. Because no matter what happens, the good guys won. The liberal democracies of the West won. Even if Ukraine gets completely annexed and consumed into Russia. Oh, no, we won. Yeah, it's a Pyrrhic victory for the Russians. They lost 20 million men. All their best equipment destroyed. No. It was a master plan. We knew what we were doing all the time. We won. Because we've seen that before. Every single time Russia achieves something, it's like, yeah, they won, but they lost. They lost. The whole division got destroyed and a whole brigade got liquidated. Okay. And said division just carries on acting normally as if it hasn't been destroyed, but that's something else. So they're gonna spin it as a victory, no matter what happens. Oh yes, we bled the Russians dry. They're not going to try anything new. It'll take them 10 years to recover. it'll be something like that. Ukraine was a pawn sacrifice. Yes, they gave their lives. Ukraine was the hill on which the evil Russians died on. They're gonna spin it somewhere or other. The media sure as hell will. That they have this incredible ability of selective amnesia, where if things go wrong, it never happened. What Ukraine? What Ukrainian war? That's a conspiracy theory. There was no war in Ukraine. What are you talking about? So they'll duck and dive out of that. I think if they're going to blame it on anything, this kind of fuses all the points together. They're going to blame it on the fact, well, we didn't, our suppositions and our prejudices and our worldview wasn't pushed hard enough. There wasn't enough EU NATO integration. The taxes weren't high enough. We didn't have. I don't know. What was that? We didn't have an EU army. If only we'd had an EU army, it would have all. They would use it to push their own ideologies, and they would double down on these. They would never sit down and reflect. Now, why did I fail? Maybe it's because I'm deficient in some area. I'll fly up there. So a moth. That doesn't matter. So I think it'll really. I don't think the political class will reflect on it, but the people that interact with the political class are really going to look at these people and think, wow, they had absolutely everything. They're the best intelligence agencies, the best generals, the best weapons. And the Russians gave them 2 years, or God knows how long it takes, and they still flopped. Maybe they're not as clever as they think they are. But the liberal elites of the West will not experience any reflection from that. It'll just be, well, we lost because we weren't liberal enough. If only we painted the tanks in rainbow pride colours, the Russians would have run away. If only we'd sung Kumbaya enough. If only the Ukrainian army was more diverse. If only they had, disabled people represented on the front lines. Some bullshit nonsense like that. I remember there was a tweet from the head of MI6 showing the pride flag, and he was saying, "This is the reason why we're better than Russia. We're inclusive and diverse." And I'm thinking, do you really think the Russian military elite give a fuck about your fucking Equality Act 2010 and your adherence to it? Do you really think that they spend a minute in awe of your delusions? They don't respect what you value. But no. The other thing that's just come to me is the Western arms industries. I mean, firstly, it's going to take years and years to recover the losses that have been sustained in the Ukraine. The whole Western surplus of military equipment and vehicles and tanks has all but been exhausted, and it's going to take years to regenerate those losses. But people are now thinking, we're seeing the failure of NATO Western technology against Russian technology. The Russians have, and I don't care if you don't agree with me or not, but the Russians have, from my point of view, developed doctrines and tactics which are impervious to NATO tactics. The Ukrainian military is a NATO army that just happens to be staffed predominantly by Ukrainians. It is NATO training, NATO technology, and NATO doctrines, and it's not doing the job. And the Ukrainians are more than happy to to absorb huge casualties in strategic aims. I mean, the lowest estimate on their casualties from Bakhmut alone are unbelievable. Population of a small town gone. That's just the dead. God knows about the wounded. So we're seeing that Western air defense systems are not impervious, and most Russian cruise missiles and hypersonic missiles are getting through. We're seeing that Western armored vehicles are getting blown up and blown apart when they drive over minefields. We're seeing that Western electronic warfare systems cannot jam Russian drones anymore. So people across the world are looking at these failures and thinking, now, do we really want to buy from these people? It reminds me of and the other thing, of course, is that the Russians are capturing Western technology and are taking them to pieces, and now unquestionably learning how they work. So we're inadvertently giving the Russians our advanced weapons technology, whether we like it or not. And all they've got to do is find a way around it, and then it's useless. As I say, it reminds me of I think it was Lycurgus, the semi-mythical, semi-historical founder of Sparta. He, I think in one of his speeches called Rhetorics, warned future Spartan generations, be very, very careful who you go to war with. Because if you do not destroy them outright, okay, you will teach them how to fight. And all they have to do is get one iota better at fighting than you are, and you're done. It was a bit more poetic in the Greek, but you get the point. All Russia has to do now is get slightly better than we are, which is what is happening. The Ukraine war is a Russian experiment as much as it is a Western one. And then we're no longer top dog, if we ever were, of course. And that I think is quite chilling, because people generally, when their backs are against the wall, they do one of two things. They either die or they get smart. And the Russians aren't dying anytime soon, son. Okay? They're getting smart. They're learning. They're learning how our systems work in the cockpit of the Ukraine. So, if the war to end tomorrow, the Russians are going to have, they're going to know how all of our advanced weapons technology work. They're going to understand our doctrines, our tactics. Probably got a good handle on how intelligence is being supplied to the Ukrainians. They're coming away with a lot of solid gold real estate out of this. But the important thing is that they know that the liberal Western elites are incapable of reform. They cannot learn from their mistakes, which means they'll just repeat them. So after the war, I don't think there's going to be any major intelligence reform anywhere. If we're very, very lucky, we might have a resignation, and it'll be, a mutual kind of gentleman's agreement. I mean, look at the intelligence failure of the Iraq War. Oh, the WMDs are everywhere. We'll find them in 10 days. Oh, really? Did anything substantial happen from that? No. Did heads metaphorically roll? No. So there. So that there's a big price to pay for losing a war, and I don't think the liberal elites have thought this through. I think that's fair to say, because we know they don't think anything through. It's just reaction. But I think the scale of this failure will be something that I don't think they can spin their way out of. So yeah, that's just some thoughts. I think they'll probably do it all over again. They'll find a new stick to beat Russia with. For the arms industry alone, they need to build up. Ukraine spent 10 years being militarized by the West. Some other country needs to buy our tanks and guns. Probably, I don't know, maybe Poland, possibly Romania. So there.